Thank you. Keeping up with the technology landscape is very challenging, to say the least. Our guest today is Greg Schwartz, founder of GSIT Group. GSIT Group has been providing IT services for businesses in the New York, New Jersey area for over 20 years. Greg graduated in 1993 with a BS in computers and management. After working as a senior IT administrator for a reinsurance company, he began helping small businesses with IT solutions on the side. Greg founded GSIT Group in 2004 on his own as an IT provider for small businesses, tailoring custom solutions for their unique requirements. After more than 20 years setting up, configuring, and maintaining his clients' IT infrastructures, both physical and in the cloud, Greg has some stories to tell and great insight into the directions technology is heading. Please give Greg an old guard welcome to the podium. Greg.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks again. So a little bit about me, as John has spoken to you about. I did go to school in New Hampshire, a small university, or now it's university, it was a college, in Rindge, New Hampshire. And that's where I studied basically an overview of computers and management. It's just basically telecommunications, some programming, but it was really just an overview. It wasn't really diving into anything more technical or detailed. From there, I got my big break with the reinsurance company. I worked for a reinsurance company in Edison, New Jersey, and there I started to work as the admin IT administrator for the company's internal systems. So I would work for the accounting office, for the financials, for the forecasting, and I had to make sure that I could also support the programmers that were programming inside. This company, when I first started working for it, had a valuation of about, I think it was around 10 to possibly $20 million. It was publicly traded. So it turned out that I had to have a lot of experience when it came to securing the environment and making sure that all these different places would work inside the company, and they all seemed to get along with each other, and they all had really good computer systems, and the programmers started to write their program to manage the company. Before I left, and it was 8 years, the valuation rose to $700 and something million. They were doing so well at that point that they moved their business to Bermuda. And that was where my opportunity was in front of me. Do I go to Bermuda and live on an island that's 1.5 miles long and barely know anybody or leave my family behind? Or do I stay in Jersey and break off and do my own thing? And so that's what I did. So in 2004, I actually, at the time I was working for the reinsurance company, I was actually moonlighting in smaller companies and just working my tail off for both. And I decided then and there that I was going to make a difference, not just to one company, but to many. So the reinsurance company was really the thing that set me off, because the challenges were there. We were getting audited by the state of Connecticut, so we really had to have our stuff together. And I thought to myself, how can I take this huge enterprise system with a $500,000 budget and shrink it and put it into the small business? So that's what I did. I took the $50,000 firewall and I put one in for $1,000. I took the $70,000 server and I put one in for $7,000. And so I made an enterprise system that was way overkill for the small business. And so how did that work out? Well, it worked out really well, and I'll explain to you how I made a difference into some of these sectors as we go. So essentially the core business was to just go in, evaluate, and design a new system around either what they had or what they didn't have. And as I did it, I noticed that each system was a little bit different for each person, and one size didn't fit all. So let's talk a little bit about the IT services today that I help with. The first thing is cloud service. Well, today, the cloud is really very well known about. It's where most people are putting their stuff. And at the time when I first started, it was mostly in-house servers and things like that. Well, in the cloud, you could actually have your server hosted. And there is essentially a way of accessing a desktop. Instead of it actually physically being here on the laptop or on a desktop, it's literally floating in the cloud, and you can access this desktop, if you will, wherever you go. So if you go to the coffee shop, your desktop's there, it's following you, wherever you go. If you decided you wanted to have a meeting somewhere else, well, your whole desktop just kind of follows you along. So that's a very convenient way of computing. The next part is data backup. Today, backup, as you know, is absolutely essential. I'll get a little bit more detailed about that, but today, backup, I can only say, is really our only hope. As you can read in the papers and read all the articles about this company getting broken into and that person getting compromised, well, it all comes down to backup. I partnered up with a company called Datto, and they have an appliance that is absolutely brilliant. What it does is it sits right next to a physical server, so it's a little appliance, and it takes 60-minute snapshots of your server, the entire server, not just your little files that are sitting there, not just an applications database, but the entire server. And what happens during a disaster or some sort of a compromise? Well, I can take the latest backup, virtualize it, we'll call it spin it up, and this particular appliance becomes the server. In around half an hour to an hour, I've managed to bring people completely back up again where their server was before without anyone going home for even a cup of coffee. So that's been terrific. Oh, another thing with that system is if your building gets compromised or you cannot, what can I say, you can't physically be in that location anymore. I was saying that, okay, so say that physical location is blown, disaster has struck, you could spin that back up in the cloud for no additional cost. It's part of you basically monthly pay for this service. Comes with the appliance and the ability to actually run it in the cloud for no additional charges. And then we go to network security. Since day one, I've always put firewalls in. It was actually working well until about maybe 10 years ago. And I noticed that just putting a firewall in was not good enough. It turns out that today, firewall appliances come with actually more services attached to them. What they can do is the ones that I deploy can actually do a network scan of your system internally to see if anything is not so happy, not so running well inside the system. It also provides a content filter to block some of the gambling sites and some of the less productivity sites that you don't want your employees to bump into, especially while they're working in the office. Another one that I really enjoy is the Cisco Duo MFA. And what this is today a password, as you know, is kind of not going to do it anymore. You're going to have to rely on another way of authentication. And so I thought that this was very important to have for specific reasons, that if you sign into one of my systems today, and this is in place, you would sign in with your username and password, but then you would get a prompt on your phone, and it would say, hey, are you signing into your computer? Allow or deny. And so it gives you that extra layer to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to approve and I'm going to get into my desktop. But if that thing pops up one day out of the blue and says, hey, approve, then you might want to look at your computer system because something else has just signed in and it wasn't you. So that brings me to software updates and maintenance. And this is something I provide on a monthly basis for some of my clients. We have a maintenance plan, and I'll get into that a little later. But it's very boring to do, but it's really kind of important to do. And why is updates and maintenance important? The computer's running okay, everything seems to work, I'm getting onto the internet. Well, what actually happens behind the scenes is that these brilliant people who are not doing so lovely things have exploited, we'll call it a vulnerability. It's exploited, meaning there's something that can manipulate your computer when it shouldn't be able to do. And so what the maintenance and updates do is they do patching, and it's so boring and it's so tedious, but it's so important to keep your subsystems or your operating systems patched. And these things now extend out to devices such as televisions that are smart. They extend to appliances and things that aren't even computers anymore, like tablets. These devices and these things are all connected to the internet, and it all takes is one vulnerability and one clever hacker or so, and they can sneak right into your system unannounced. So it's a very important thing to go about. Because today, it's not just the software, it's not just the operating system. These clever guys have decided to hack into the underlying thing called firmware. It's essentially the chips and the little operating system inside before you even get to Windows or Mac OS. It's called the firmware. And so they have figured out a way to actually skim information when it goes from the processor to the memory banks, and from the memory banks to your hard drive. They figured out a way to actually read that information. And so all these manufacturers are doing firmware upgrades to try to prevent those things. And again, this is a constant battle, as you know. Okay, so with all that, I essentially started out with really transportation and warehousing. That where my first client was a trucking company in 1995, and I designed they were in a Xenix system, and if you guys know what a Xenix system is, an old Unix platform with like an orange screen with those little flashing cursors, and you had to hit F keys to get yourself around the board, It was custom designed, but it was really for more accounting purposes. And so that's where I really started to consider, how do I build a system to help these people? And obviously I couldn't use what they had. So we went to a few of those trucking company shows, and we found Profit Tools, which was a very small company in the beginning. They were actually working out of another trucking company's, trailer, and they were watching how trucking companies and warehouse companies did their business. And they built a Windows program for trucking, and I managed to put that in for these people. And again, it grew the company millions of dollars later. They constantly progressed, and even today, they're still running Profit Tools, the same company. We've moved of course, it's new versions of it, but essentially they've been running it for about over 20 plus years. Another spot where I really shined were dentist offices. It turns out that they also need a very good internal system to manage the appointments, and especially to show your x-rays of your teeth. And that has gone quite a progression between actually those little films that would get then washed in like some sort of solution to digital x-rays. So now they can x-ray you and pop it right up on your screen now. And I watched that progression happen there. Next is accounting firms. Accounting firms for me are essentially the goose that laid the golden egg. And why do I say that? Is because accounting firms, they have already a very good trust relationship with their clients. And for them to refer me, it's almost like, hey, I've got a good computer guy, and it gets me a foot in the door already because I've done such a lot of work with a lot of accounting groups. And that becomes a lot of trust because you're looking at people's financials, and it's just a very sensitive area. They also rely on high-speed connections, and not only to the internet, but in the beginning it was printing, and boy, do they print. They print tax return after tax return, and the more people that are on the system, the more jobs that hit the system, the more these copiers and printers have to go. And so you do need a high-speed system for that. Also, in doing so, I've worked for companies which have the QuickBooks and the Pro Series software from Intuit. I've had experience with the Thomson Routers package, so I'm very familiar with these accounting packages. I've moved them, I've migrated them, and I've restored them and backed them up. And so I feel like when it comes to accounting groups, this is really one of my strengths. I can really relate to the accounting departments and so on. And then it comes down to veterinary practices. They also, including is amazing enough, they also do management as well. They need a good system. They also have x-rays and dental programs now for your pets and x-rays and things like that. So it's almost like a marriage of a dentist office and a regular office. So I had quite a lot of experience with the veterinary hospitals as well. So I've kind of broken down my offerings, if you will. I do the one-time, break and fix. Greg, I've lost some files. Do you think you can help me? There was a young lady that had found me in nearby, and she wanted to know if I fix computers. And I said to her, yes, I do, but let's get into detail about what it is that you want. And she said, well, I've been living in this folder for a long time, and now my folder is gone, and I do not know what to do. I lived in the folder for many years, and all my stuff is gone. Is there any way you can look into it? I said, sure, I can. So I went over to take a look, and as soon as I saw it, I almost immediately saw that the files that were pointing to a location called the G drive. Well, I looked on her computer, and there was no G drive. So I thought to myself, well, there's our problem. Did you guys have a server? And she said, we used to, but it's no longer there. We've moved our files to the cloud. I'm like, okay, have you using OneDrive? Are you using Gmail? And they said, not really sure. So I looked at it further, and sure enough, the component for G Suite or Gmail has this little desktop application, and it's called the Google Drive. And it actually creates a G drive locally on your computer. So I noticed that was missing. I said, okay, let's go take a look at your Gmail account. And she had about 300 of them, but we found the right one. And there, sitting in the drive, was all of her files sitting in a folder, and she was thrilled. So I tried to tell her this is what happened, and anyway, to make a long story short, found her files, she's back, she's happy, yay. So these are little things sometimes I can do, and sometimes I can't, but I was very happy that I could do that for her, and hopefully she'll think about me in the future. So that was a one-time thing. Other times I've been asked to do projects. So, okay, we got several computers here. We need upgrades. Can we do this in a project type of scenario where I can then allocate what I believe an estimated amount of time at a certain price so that nobody gets the sticker shock at the end. Then it comes to monthly maintenance plans, which I definitely I think is a terrific idea, where I definitely visit you once a month. It's mostly physically, but sometimes virtually. We check your entire system out, making sure that all of your computers are not complaining about anything, don't have any hidden issues, don't have firmwares that are outdated. Your backup is definitely going off as in the way it should, and everything is really good. So that also gives me an idea about the future. I can tell that in 6 months to a year that certain computers are going to start falling out of production and so on. From there, I offer endpoint protection and several products I use. And one of them is very interesting. Oops, sorry. It's based on artificial intelligence. Most antiviruses, they use essentially a list gets updated, and that list gets sent to you. And the list has all the names of the latest viruses that come out. But unfortunately, viruses are coming out so quickly that that list can't keep up. And there's what they call viruses in the wild. So there's about a 24 to 48 hour window of opportunity for this virus to hit you because your antivirus hasn't gotten the clue yet that it's up, that needs to be updated. If it's not on the list, it doesn't know anything about it. So this artificial intelligent antivirus is called Silence. They were purchased by BlackBerry recently. And what it does is essentially it looks at the behavior of the executables and the programs that are running on your computer. And if it doesn't like what it sees from a behavioral standpoint, it quarantines it. And they put it up against, I was a bit skeptical at first, but they put it up against a test between the top antivirus products and Silence. And the top products got about an 80% score. Silence got about a 98% of every virus they threw at it. So it was quite impressive. I have employed it, and it definitely has quite some interesting features about it. And so that is something I also offer as well. Then it comes down to backup again and recovery. The backup appliance company Datto that I had mentioned in previous part of my presentation makes a product called SaaS Backup and Protection for your Office 365 and Gmail suite. And why I like this is because Microsoft does say that they have you backed up for at least 30 days in case there is some sort of a failure or a missing file or a missing email. They say you can then pull it off of their backup system. But after 30 days, I think you're going to be in a bit of trouble. So this is where SaaS backup comes in. It sits in the cloud, and it's literally backing up Office 365 in the cloud. So it's a cloud-to-cloud backup. There is no physical, there is no anything we put on your computers. The nice thing about it is not only does it back up your company's mailboxes, but it backs up the SharePoint and the OneDrive. And I've noticed that people are moving their files into these particular products because of the shareability of them, the ease of them. You can reach OneDrive's files very easily these days, and it's very integrated inside. Even Windows 11 now is pushing you to use it. So this product takes, I believe, 3 snapshots a day. It has an infinity of time. So as long as you're subscribing, you'll have the backups. I've recently had to go back to a few years ago for a client that someone had let go. That person had deleted their particular mailbox that they were looking for. And sure enough, it was sitting in a backup copy from last November, for example. So it came up really big for this one client. These are a few dollars a mailbox a month, and they are incredibly sophisticated. And I feel so much better that my clients are using this kind of a product, because email to me is the lifeblood of business. As you know, it's about 80% of business gets done through email. So I think this is something that is extremely important to have. They also make it for the G Suite, for Google's business side, where it'll also back up the Google Drive and the email mailboxes as well. So yeah, I think that's essentially it. And so I have a bit of a story. It turns out that one of my accounting groups has a Datto appliance. They are going through what they do every year, as you know, is they have tax season. Tax season for an accounting firm that's it. It's their pinnacle. It's the time where they have to process their forms, they have to fill out your returns, and they have to do it in a timely manner. Well, this particular season with this particular client, one of their servers crashed, and they were in the middle of tax season. It was one morning, and they called me in a full panic. They were just about to start their day, and their server crashed. I was about 2 hours away at the time, and I would normally come on site to see what was going on, but we couldn't wait for anything to happen like that. So I went to my Datto appliance. I applied the recovery from the latest backup that it took, and within a half an hour, the company was ready to take returns and ready to start again, and there was no downtime at all. So again, this really shined. This product saved them. It saved their tax season, and now it's time, because it's over, that we allocate some time and money into a new server, and we're going to build a new one. But it just gives you that peace of mind to know when I needed it the most, it came through. Another story of recovery, thanks to the Datto, was I have a firm in the city, and they happened to be at the top floor of this building. Well, I got the call in the morning that the system was unresponsive and I had to come and take a look. Well, I asked them if they could, please just go into the computer room and tell me if you see any lights on. Well, they said, Greg, I think you should come in because not only are there lights on, they were seeing a lot of water. I said, a lot of what? A lot of what? It turned out that the roof had leaked, the water had come in to the computer room, and through the ceiling tiles, it went on top of all the equipment for the internet, all the switches for the network, and the top server fried completely out. And that's what I was set with. I was set with that type of a disaster. Thankfully, this was not an accounting firm, it was a law firm. They did not need to have their system up right away, but they sure would like it, as soon as possible. So thanks to the Dado and a couple very skilled Verizon technicians and a very fast shipping an Amazon type of environment, we were able to get them back up and running the next day. Once again, the Dado came up huge. I was able to order some more components for their servers and essentially put everything back together again. But it just gives you that sense that if I have this appliance protecting my system, I should be pretty much in good shape. So I think that's essentially it. If you have any questions, thank you so much.
Let me just kick it off with a question. Platformization is something that I keep hearing about, where a company offering IT services will have several different kinds of solutions sort of packaged, but they might have 3 or 4, or maybe some have a whole lot. Do you go for platformization in yours? Do you have a few basic ones that you find are useful?
Yes, so we do have that type of offering. Today, large firms, we call them NOCs, or these big companies that have these internal systems, they are now available to somebody like me to resell. And it's called managed services. And so what it does is essentially it's an agent that sits on your computer and watches over your computer's updates. It watches in terms of security, it sees what you're doing. It takes snapshots of your computer. And all this is happening on an agent-based system, and it's reporting back to a NOC. And you can subscribe to levels of this particular service. If you wanted to have, say, the standard service, it's X amount of money. But if you wanted to bump it up, where a team of individuals looking after your computer system sees a vulnerability at, say, 1 or 2 in the morning, they will jump onto the remediation right away. They won't wait for you to get into the office to call and say, hey, I think I have a problem. So these are the kind of services that I believe you're looking at, Rich. At first, they were extremely expensive, but because of consolidation, they have come down for a considerable amount of less money today than they were in the future.
Greg, thank you for your talk. I was having so much fun hearing you talk, because after I retired from Bell Labs about 12 years ago, I got employed as a part-time system administrator for a small company that had its corporate office right here in New Providence, but most of its business, its employees were in Bangalore in India. They were all Indians, and its customer base was all in Africa, because they sold cell phone services, smart cell phone services for dumb flip phones. So anyway, the point is, I was the in-house support person for the C-suite people, and I was doing all the things you were talking about, and virtualizing, and big servers, and connecting our network with Africa and India, and keeping everything alive. So, I have a bunch of stories like that, which are a lot of fun. Like, for instance, yeah, our room overheated at night one time, and it was the coldest day of the year, because the AC on the roof had frozen. And so there was, whatever. But anyway, two quick questions. One is, this week, two of our members, even Mike of the mic check, the mic check person out there, had their email accounts hacked. And it was this standard gift card hack where they break into your email account and they send out blast emails from your account and they get everybody. So, you know, my impression is that a lot of the hacks of small corporate and even large corporate networks occur because employees they get bad emails and they're naive and they click on things they shouldn't, and if they're doing that from their corporate email account, that gives the hackers access in some cases. So is that a particular problem that you have to deal with? Or, and I mean, do you have appliances that you can, and things you can put in the firewalls to prevent them, or is it just training? And then the other question is, you take either of these. We're about to see Microsoft finally pull the plug on Windows 10 updates. And there are a lot of people who are still going to be using Windows 10 because their computers can't handle Windows 11, and they seem to be working fine, and they don't want to spend all that money to buy a new computer. That's going to happen. And Microsoft is going to stop distributing these patches that you're talking about that protect against new threats that come up. And so if somebody is still running on a Windows 10 computer, and probably some people in this room will be, obviously it gets more dangerous for them if they're not getting security updates. But would you say that within a month or two, it's going to become a certainty that the bad guys are going to be breaking into all these computers because there's no longer any updating? Thanks.
Well, thank you for those questions. Very good questions. I think let's talk about the Windows 10 to 11 update. I think this is important, okay? If you have a Windows 10 machine and it's 8th generation or older, I think it is, you won't be able to update because of the chips inside. And you said you'd have to get a new computer, it's going to cost a lot of money. Well, not necessarily. There's a very good chance that you can get 11th, 12th generation chips, which I believe are the best that Intel put out, and I can get into that in a little bit, for at least half the money. And most of these companies are buying these computers in bulk, and then they're reselling them. They're barely even used. They have to sit on the desk for 3 years, and out they go. This is the time when I usually pick them off and get really good pricing for we'll call it refurbished computers. They still come with a warranty. You're still not going to be stuck with a brick and lost your money because it's no good. Typically, I only buy name brand. I don't build my own. I'm a very big fan of the big guys, the Dell, HP, Lenovo. Those are my go-tos. The reason why I like 11th and 12th generation, I would prefer to skip the 13th and 14th generation chips because Intel had a bit of a overheating problem with those chips. Even though they believe they've rectified it with a firmware upgrade, I would kind of stay away from those particular generation chips. As for if you do have to run your older Windows 10 programs and workstations, and you become more vulnerable, yes, because the browsers aren't going to update anymore. And I guess it all depends on how you're using that Windows 10 machine. You know, are you using it to browse the net, or are you using it for the older programs that aren't going to run on 11, right? So I would say maybe move those older programs maybe not off the internet, but in a different subnet. Today, we're what we call subnets, meaning networks. We're creating virtual networks these days to isolate some of the older legacy stuff with the newer stuff, so they don't kind of run on this. Even though they're plugged into the same switch, they're actually running on a different, we call it road. They're on a different road, so they can't bump into each other. That's one of the things I would do there if I was running an older version of Windows. Another thing is backup. Backup, backup, backup. If you have an image backup of that Windows 10 computer, hack all you want. Go in. grab my stuff. It's okay, because I'm gonna format it. I'm gonna put it right back where it was prior to whatever happened to my computer. I think that's definitely what I would do. Thank you.
Thanks for this great briefing. I want to ask you a sort of a deep question. It's about trusting businesses. So I go to my doctor's office or some store or something, and they have a system that a company like yours might have provided. And they're keeping some confidential information, whether it's my password or my credit card or lots of other things. If it's medical, of course, there's a lot more. I can't even ask them about the quality of their security. I mean, there's nobody to ask. You know, if you ask the receptionist, they don't know. And when something happens, like, you know, there's some problem that they have with a record or an appointment or whatever it is, you know, they don't hesitate to say, oh, well, the system makes this happen. So from their point of view, they've delegated the whole problem to a company, a contractor, who provides them with a system and the security. But from that contractor's point of view, they'd rather not make waves. Now, this is not an accusation, but you know, it's easier for them to just keep going. And if they're suspicious of something in the system, if it doesn't seem to be causing trouble, they can just leave it alone. So what's the answer? Well, one answer is some kind of auditing, but you can't expect small businesses to do that. Is there any way to make this better? That's my question.
Unfortunately, it seems today that they are sweeping credentials, they're sweeping information out of all these systems on such a constant basis that I get article after article. 2 billion passwords just popped up on the dark web. And some of these companies now, like Google and some of these other guys, are actually doing a dark web scan. You can put your email address in there and boop, up comes, oh, you've been found on 87 vulnerable systems. Your social security number's been out there 300 or 400 times. They know a couple of your passwords that you've used in the past. So today, I do it as well as my wife. We have some sort of an identity protection in place. Protect my ID from Experian, I think it is. Some of these other credit companies today are offering these services. I would highly recommend it. What you'll do is sign up for the service. They could freeze all of your accounts instantly if you feel that there's been a vulnerability. They will try to protect your ID a little bit better than yourself, because you cannot keep control of this. This is way beyond an individual. It's way beyond one company, and protecting yourself that way, I think, is the better play, definitely. So using one of those protection services, I would recommend today for everyone. Thank you.
We're going to go online for a question. Al Aho, go ahead.
Well, thank you for a most interesting and important talk. One question that I had in the past was, how should a company protect themselves against insider attacks? What do you recommend today?
Well, depending on your budget, they have They have what they call a DLP system, a digital loss prevention system. And what it does is if you have any file, spreadsheet, document that is going to be given out to an employee, they literally check it out. They check out the document, which means that person took the document from the system at a specific time. There's an audit trail. If they copy it to their thumb drive, it's recorded there. Every file is absolutely accounted for. It's called a DLP system. In the past, it's extremely expensive, but today, I haven't really looked at it lately, but I'm sure that you can get it as a software as a service. You probably don't have to put an entire investment into something like this and have that type of capability. So I would use a DLP system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Two questions. One, we've all heard that the Department of Defense has been hacked. Why would anybody trust anything that goes out on a cloud when the Department of Defense itself could be broken into? Second, how would somebody who, not a business, but just one of the people here, evaluate one of these storefront software guys to find out if they're competent to troubleshoot something or do an upgrade or just do whatever you're not capable or confident enough to do yourself? How does somebody pick one of these out that knows something?
Right. That's a good question, because today, you have the Geek Squad, which employs people from all sorts of, technical schools and background. You have, technicians today, they do have certifications that they have to go and pass in order to have what they call an A++ or an A type of certificate. I would actually do the same thing I would normally do, is look at the reviews of the particular technician or company that you're looking at. Look for their clients. Talk to the people that they've serviced. Find out from the end user, the end client, hey, how is ABC's company's techs? Have they been efficient? Did they show up on time? Have they done the job that they were supposed to do? So do your diligence in terms of look at the clients that these companies have addressed in the past. And I think you'll make a very informative decision that way. Also, there's ratings these days. People are rating everybody. There's surveys that go out too. So I would look at surveys and ratings. And then, of course, ultimately interview not only the company that you're looking to get in, but the clients that they have served, because that'll really tell you the story is the clients that they've worked on. Thank you.
Okay, first, a comment about Geek Squad. I will never use Geek Squad. I used to use them, but before, I thought they were pretty good before Best Buy bought them. And after Best Buy bought them, they've been hiring, I think, people, just random people off the street who may or may not know. They may be good, they may not be good, and it's very random whether you get somebody who's good. And I've had friends who've gone there, and the people have done absolutely the wrong thing. One guy lost all his data because the guy restored the system, but accidentally destroyed all his data. He restored it the wrong way. This is Geek Squad. So I would not touch Geek Squad. I know people in this room probably go to Geek Squad. You better, actually, we do some in-house consulting. It's better to come to me than Geek Squad. Okay, and a lot of you do that. So now my actual question for you is this. With Elon Musk's Doge team of, 20-somethings running around the government, sucking up all this personnel data from every government system and taking it on their thumb drives to somewhere, does that make you, given your profession, nervous?
Well, that's for sure. I think it makes everybody nervous. Where is that information going, and how are they going to use it? It'd be nice to know a very clear picture, because we can all make our assumptions, and we can also put like the negative thoughts in there. So yeah, I mean, it's moving so fast, and like I said, It's just a matter of time before somebody gets compromised, before there's a break-in, before someone gets ransomed, unfortunately. And that's why I fall back on the backup. I really do. I think the backup is really the place where they don't have a chance. If you can prevent them from deleting the backup, which they've been doing, again, this is something that I can get into in further detail. Having a backup today is absolutely essential if you want to hold on to what's yours. Thank you.
Hi, I'm the famous Mike or infamous, depending upon who you are. Question, when you dispose of a computer, what should you do? Should you just take a sledgehammer to it, or just guide me?
All right, well, that's a fantastic question. I was actually doing a class one time. It was a recovery class in Manhattan, and I was sitting next to this gentleman, and we got into a little bit of a talk about that, you know. It turned out he was working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation at the time. He was in charge of also, in the IT world, he was doing recovery and backup for the feds. And I said to him the same question. And what he said was, if you throw your disk drive away, they can read it. Encrypted passwords, you know, they can read it. If you can hit the delete key and you just throw the drive away, if you format the computer and you just toss it in to the dumpster, they can read it. The only way you can protect your files that are sitting on the drive is if you physically put a hole through it. You need to take a drill bit, that's an iron type of whatever, a very strong drill bit, and drill a hole through the platter. Now that's when they were spinning back in the day. Now today there's solid state drives, but the idea is the same. Damage the drive. You damage the drive, they cannot take the platter out, they cannot read it. This comes straight from the FBI. Thank you.
John, do you want to come up and thank our speaker?
Greg, as I said before, I knew this group would have a lot to ask you. Wonderful. And we're very grateful for what you've done today and that you came here. We, as a group, have a tradition of thanking our presenters two ways. One is a certificate of appreciation, which comes from the old guard. The old guard has been around since the 1930s. When they started, this area was known for its excellence in the orchid market. So that's why we have an orchid on the certificate. So we want to give you this. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And we'll also give you what we call the Old Guard salute.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.